Thus, as I heard on one occasion, the Blessed One was wandering in the Magadhan country and eventually arrived at Rajagaha. There he went to the potter Bhagawa and said to him, "If it's not inconvenient for you, Bhagawa, I will stay one night at your workshop." "It's not inconvenient for me, Venerable Sir, but there's a homeless one already staying there. If he agrees, then stay as long as you like, Venerable Sir." Now there was a clansman named Pukusati who had gone forth from the home life into homelessness out of faith in the Blessed One. On that occasion, he was already staying in the potter's workshop. Pukusati was a king of a minor realm. And he met King Bimbisara. And they started talking about the Buddha's teaching. And Pukusati became very interested in it. And when he went back to his own kingdom, he was writing back and forth with King Bimbisara. And King Bimbisara had such faith in the Buddha that whatever things he was writing, he wrote on a gold, kind of like a brick, but I can't think of what else you would call it. Yeah. And he became so enthusiastic about the Buddha's teaching that he gave up his kingdom. He gave everything away and became a monk. Now he's on his way to see the Buddha. Then the Blessed One went to the Venerable Pukusati and said to him, "If it's not inconvenient for you, monk, I will stay one night in the workshop." "The potter's workshop is large enough, friend. Let the Venerable One stay as long as he likes." Then the Blessed One entered the potter's workshop, prepared a spread of grass at one end, and sat down, folding his legs crosswise, setting his body erect, and establishing mindfulness in front of him. Then the Blessed One spent most of the night seated in meditation, and the Venerable Pukusati also spent most of the night seated in meditation. Then the Blessed One thought, "This clansman conducts himself in a way that inspires confidence. Suppose I were to question him." So he asked the Venerable Pukusati, "Under whom have you gone forth, monk? Who is your teacher? Whose Dhamma do you profess?" "Friend, there is the recluse Gotama, son of the Sakyans, who went forth from the Sakyan clan. Now a good report of that blessed Gotama has been spread to this effect. He is accomplished, fully awakened, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. I have gone forth under the Blessed One. That Blessed One is my teacher. I profess the Dhamma of that Blessed One. But monk, where is that Blessed One, accomplished and fully awakened, now living? There is, friend, a city in northern country named Sawati. The Blessed One, accomplished and fully awakened, is now living there. But, monk, have you ever seen the Blessed One before? Would you recognize him if you saw him? No, friend, I've never seen the Blessed One before, nor would I recognize him if I saw him. Then the Blessed One thought, this clansman has gone forth from the home life into homelessness under me. Suppose I were to teach him the Dhamma. So the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Pukusati thus, Monk, I will teach you the Dhamma. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, friend, Venerable Pukusati replied. The Blessed One said this, Monk, this person consists of 6 elements, 6 bases of contact, 18 kinds of mental exploration, and he has 4 foundations. The tides of conceiving do not sweep over one who stands upon these foundations. For when the tides of conceiving no longer sweep over him, he's called a sage at peace. One should not neglect wisdom, should preserve the truth, should cultivate relinquishment. A lot of times the definition of relinquishment is misunderstood in Buddhism. It means a giving up, but it means letting go of craving. That's what relinquishment actually means here. And should train for peace. This is the summary of the exposition of the 6 elements. Monk, this person consists of 6 elements. So it was said. And with reference to what was this said? There are the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element, the space element, and the consciousness element. So it was with reference to this that it was said, Monk, this person consists of 6 elements. Monk, this person consists of 6 bases of contact, so it was said, and with reference to what was this said? There are the base of eye contact, the base of ear contact, the base of nose contact, the base of tongue contact, the base of body contact, and the base of mind contact. So it was with reference to this that it was said, monks, this person consists of 6 bases of contact. Monk, this person consists of 18 kinds of mental exploration. So it was said, and with reference to what was this said? On seeing a form with the eye, one explores a form productive of joy, one explores a form productive of grief, one explores a form productive of equanimity. On hearing a sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object with mind. One explores a mind object productive of joy. One explores a mind object productive of grief. One explores a mind productive of equanimity. Now, joy, I like it. Grief, I don't like it. Equanimity, the impersonal nature of everything. Another way of describing grieving. So it was with reference to this that it was said, monk, this person consists of 18 kinds of mental exploration. Monk, this person has 4 foundations. So it was said, and with reference to what was this said? They are the foundation of wisdom, the foundation of truth, the foundation of relinquishment, and the foundation of peace. So it was with reference to this that it was said, monk, this person has 4 foundations. One should not neglect wisdom, should preserve truth, should cultivate relinquishment, and should train for peace. So it was said, and with reference to what was this said? How, monk, does one not neglect wisdom? There are these 6 elements, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element, the space element, and the consciousness element. What, monk, is the earth element? The earth element can be either internal or external. What is the internal earth element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is solid, solidified, and clung to. That is head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinew, bones, bone marrow, kidney, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, contents of the stomach, feces, or whatever else internally belonging to oneself is solid, solidified, and clung to. This is called the internal earth element. Now, both the internal earth element and external earth element are simply earth element. And that should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. When one sees it thus, as it actually is with proper wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with the earth element and makes mind dispassionate towards the earth element. Now I'm going to switch over to another sutta. This is sutta number 62. Okay, and this is the Buddha is talking to his son Rahula and giving him a lesson. Rahula, develop meditation that is like the earth. For when you develop meditation that is like the earth, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. Just as people throw clean things and dirty things, excrement, urine, spittle, pus, and blood on the earth is not repelled, humiliated, and disgusted because of that. So too, Rahula, develop meditation that is like the earth. For when you develop meditation that's like the earth, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. Meditation pain comes up, you put your attention on it, that's invading your mind. When you allow it to be there, don't try to control it, just let it be by itself. Come back to your object of meditation. You're starting to develop equanimity towards that, and that pain won't be so distracting. So the Buddha is saying to do this with all of the different elements that arise. What, monks, is the water element? The water element may be either internal or external. What is the internal water element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is water, watery and clung to. That is bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, spittle, snot, oil of the joints, urine, or whatever else internally belonging to oneself is water, watery and clung to. This is called the internal water element. Now, both the internal water element and external water element are simply water element. And that should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. When one sees it thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with the water element and allows the mind to be dispassionate towards the water element. Sometimes I disagree with the translator. Okay. What, Rahula, is the water element? Oops, is that right? No, that's the wrong spot. Rahula, develop meditation that is like water. For when you develop meditation that is like water, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. Just as people wash clean things and dirty things, excrement, urine, spittle, pus, and blood in water, and the water is not repelled, humiliated, and disgusted because of that. So too, Rahula, develop meditation that is like water. For when you develop meditation that is like water, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. What, monk, is the fire element? The fire element may be either internal or external. What is the internal fire element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is fire, fiery and clung to. That is, that by which one is warmed, ages, and consumed, and that by which what is eaten, drunk, consumed, and tasted gets completely digested, or whatever else internally belonging to oneself is fire, fiery and clung to. This is called the internal fire element. Now, both the internal fire element and external fire element are simply fire element. And what should be seen, and that should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. When one sees it thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with the fire element and makes the mind dispassionate towards the fire element. Rahula, develop meditation that is like fire, for when you develop meditation that is like fire, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. Just as people burn clean things and dirty things, excrement, urine, spittle, pus, and blood, in fire, and the fire is not repelled, humiliated, and disgusted because of that, so too, Rahula, develop meditation that is like fire. For when you develop meditation that is like fire, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. What is the air element? The air element may be either internal or external. What is the internal air element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is air, airy and clung to. That is upgoing winds, downgoing winds, winds in the belly, winds in the bowels, winds that course through the limbs, the in and out breath, or whatever else internally belonging to oneself is air, airy and clung to. This is called the internal earth or air element. Now, both the internal air element and external air element are simply air element, and that should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. When one sees it thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with the air element and makes the mind, allows the mind to be dispassionate towards the air element. Rahula, develop meditation that is like air. For when you develop meditation that is like air, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. That is a real important statement, not invade your mind and remain. Just as the air blows on clean things and dirty things, on excrement, urine, spittle, pus, and blood, and the air is not repelled, humiliated, and disgusted because of that, so too, Rahula, develop meditation that is like the air. For when you develop meditation that is like the air, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. What, monk, is the space element? The space element may either be internal or external. What is the internal space element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is space, spatial and clung to. That is the holes of the ears, the nostrils, the door of the mouth, and that aperture whereby what is eaten, drunk, consumed, and tasted gets swallowed, and where it collects and where it is excreted from below, or whatever else internally belonging to oneself is space, spatial and clung to. This is called the internal space element. Now, both the internal space element and external space element are simply space element, and that should be seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. When one sees it thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, One becomes dispassionate with the space element and allows the mind to be dispassionate towards the space element. Rahula, develop meditation that is like space. For when you develop meditation that is like space, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. Just as space is not established anywhere, so too, Rahula, develop meditation that is like space. For when you develop meditation that is like space, arisen agreeable and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. And then there remains only consciousness, purified and bright. What does one cognize with that consciousness? Cognize and recognize. Recognize means memory. Cognize means seeing in the present. One cognizes this is pleasant. One cognizes this is painful. One cognizes this is neither painful nor pleasant. In dependence on a contact to be felt as pleasant, there arises a pleasant feeling. When one feels a pleasant feeling, one understands, I feel a pleasant feeling. One understands with the cessation of that same contact to be felt as pleasant. Its corresponding feeling, the pleasant feeling that arose in dependence on that contact to be felt as pleasant, ceases and subsides. In dependence on a contact to be felt as painful, there arises a painful feeling. When one feels a painful feeling, one understands, I feel a painful feeling. One understands with the cessation of that same contact to be felt as painful, its corresponding feeling, the painful feeling that arose in dependence on that contact to be felt as painful, ceases and subsides. On dependence of a contact to be felt as neither painful nor pleasant, there arises a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When one feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, one understands, I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. One understands with the cessation of that same contact to be felt as neither painful nor pleasant, its corresponding feeling, the neither painful nor pleasant feeling that arose in dependence on that contact to be felt as neither painful nor pleasant, ceases and subsides. Monks, just as the contact and the friction of two fire sticks generate heat and fire is produced, with the separation and disjunction of those two fire sticks, the corresponding heat subsides too. So in dependence on the contact to be felt as neither painful or pleasant, or neither painful nor pleasant, there arises a neither painful or pleasant feeling. One understands with the cessation of that same contact to be felt as neither painful nor pleasant, its corresponding feeling ceases and subsides. then there remains only equanimity, purified and bright, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. Now we're talking about getting into the fourth jhana. Suppose, monk, a skilled goldsmith or his apprentice were to prepare a furnace, heat up the crucible, and take some gold with tongs and put it in the crucible. From time to time he would blow on it. From time to time he would sprinkle water over it. From time to time he would just watch and look on. That gold would become refined, well refined, completely refined, faultless, rid of dross, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. Then what kind of ornament he wishes to make from it, whether it's a gold chain or earrings or a necklace or gold garland, it would serve his purpose. So too, monks, there remains only equanimity, purified and bright, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. Okay. Rahula, develop meditation. Oh, I've already done that, haven't I? Then what happens with this particular sutta is it starts talking about the Brahma Viharas. Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness, for when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. Develop meditation on compassion, for when you develop meditation on compassion, any cruelty will be abandoned. Develop meditation on joy, for when you develop meditation on joy, any discontent will be abandoned. Rahula, develop meditation on equanimity, for when you develop meditation on equanimity, any aversion will be abandoned. So that gives you an idea of one of the many places you can find the meditation on the Brahma Viharas, in this book in particular, but it's also in the Samyutta Nikaya quite often. So too, monks, then there remains only equanimity. He understands thus, if I were to direct this equanimity, so purified and bright, to the base of compassion with infinite space, and to develop my mind accordingly, then this equanimity of mind, supported by that base, clinging to it, would remain for a very long time. And I encourage everybody not to grab on and cling to anything. If I were to direct this equanimity, so purified and bright, to the base of joy with infinite consciousness, or to the base of nothingness with equanimity, or with the base of neither perception nor non-perception, and develop my mind accordingly, then this equanimity of mind, supported by that base, clinging to it, would remain for a very long time. When you hear the word clinging to it, it should also say craving and clinging to it. And that's why the one-pointed concentration only goes so far, because there is clinging but it's not recognized that you have to let go of the craving too. He understands thus, if I were to direct this equanimity so purified and bright, I've already done that. Oh, no. To compassion and infinite space, and to develop my mind accordingly, this would be conditioned. If I were to direct this equanimity so purified and bright to joy with infinite consciousness, or to equanimity with the base of nothingness, or to the base of neither perception nor non-perception, and to develop my mind accordingly, this would be conditioned. It's still conditioned states that we're talking about. He does not form any condition or generate any volitional tending towards either being or not being. Since he does not form any condition or generate any volitional tending towards either being or not being, he does not cling to anything in the world. What we're talking about now is getting into the unconditioned state, where it is the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. When he does not cling, he is not agitated. When he's not agitated, he personally attains nibbana. He understands thus, birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more coming to any state of being. Now he's talking about getting to arahatship here. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he understands it's impermanent. There's no holding to it. There's no delight in it. If he feels a painful feeling, he understands it's impermanent. There's no holding to it. There's no delight in it. If he feels neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands it is impermanent. There is no holding to it. There's no delight in it. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. When he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with the body. When he feels a feeling terminating with life, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with life. He understands, on the dissolution of the body, with the ending of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. The definition of nibbana means cool. No fire, right? Monk, as an oil lamp burns in dependence on the oil and wick, and when the oil and wick are used up, if it does not get any more fuel, it is extinguished from lack of fuel. So too, when one feels a feeling terminating with the body, a feeling terminating with life, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with life. He understands, on the dissolution of the body, with the ending of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. It's interesting how, I guess it was in the 1950s when the beatnik generation started happening. They were talking about things being cool, and it's kind of stuck all this time. Cool down. Take it easy. What are we actually saying when we say it's cool? It means it's wholesome. It's good. That's what being cool is. That was an observation that I had a little while ago. I thought it was interesting. Therefore, a monk possessing this wisdom possesses the supreme foundation of wisdom. Now, this wisdom that is talking about is all impersonal. Everything in the world is impersonal. When there is craving, there is fire. It's not so cool. So, we have to be able to recognize what craving is and how to let it go. So that way we can become cool. For this, monks, is the supreme noble wisdom, namely the knowledge of the destruction of all suffering, letting go of craving. His deliverance, being founded upon truth, is unshakable, for that is false, monks, which has a deceptive nature, and that is true, which has an undeceptive nature, nibbana. Therefore, a monk possessing this truth possesses the supreme foundation of truth. For this, monk, is the supreme noble truth, namely nibbana, which has an undeceptive nature. Formerly, when one is ignorant, he undertook and accepted acquisitions. Now he has abandoned them, cut them off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with them, as they are no longer subject to future arising. Therefore, a monk possessing this relinquishment possesses the supreme foundation of relinquishment. For this, monk, is the supreme noble relinquishment, namely the relinquishing of all acquisitions. Formerly, when he was ignorant, he experienced covetousness, desire, and lust. Now he has abandoned them, cut them off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with them, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Formerly, when he was ignorant, he experienced anger, ill will, and hate. Now he has abandoned them, cut them off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with them, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Formerly, when he was ignorant, he experienced ignorance and delusion. Now he has abandoned them, cut them off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with them, so that they're no longer subject to future arising. Therefore, a monk possessing this peace possessing the supreme foundation of peace. For this, monks, is the supreme foundation, a noble peace, namely the pacification of lust, hatred, and delusion, pacification of all craving. So it was with reference to this that it was said, one should not neglect wisdom, one should preserve truth, one should cultivate relinquishment, and should train for peace. The tides of conceiving do not sweep over one who stands upon these foundations, and when the tides of conceiving no longer sweep over him, he's called a sage at peace. So it is said, and with reference to what was this said, monk, I am is conceiving. I am this is conceiving. I shall be is conceiving. I shall not be is conceiving. I shall be possessed of form is conceiving. I shall be formless is conceiving. I shall be radiant is conceiving. I shall be non-radiant is conceiving. I shall be neither radiant nor non-radiant is conceiving. Conceiving is a disease. Conceiving is a tumor. Conceiving is a dart. By overcome all conceivings, monk, one is called a sage at peace. And the sage at peace is not born, does not age, does not die, for he is not shaken and does not yearn, for there is nothing present in him by which he might be born. Not being born, how could he age? Not aging, how could he die? Not dying, how could he be shaken? Not being shaken, how could he yearn? So it was with reference to this that it was said, the tides of conceiving do not sweep over one who stands upon these foundations. And when the tides of conceiving no longer sweep over him, he's called a sage at peace. Monk, bear in mind this brief exposition of the 6 elements, wherein the Venerable Pukusati thought, indeed, the teacher has come to me, the Sublime One has come to me, the fully awakened one has come to me. Then he rose from his seat, arranged his outer robe over one shoulder, and prostrating himself at the Blessed One's feet, he said, Venerable Sir, a transgression overcame me, in that, like a fool, confused and blundering, I presumed to address the Blessed One as friend. Venerable Sir, may the Blessed One forgive my transgression, seen as such for the sake of restraint in the future. Surely, monk, a transgression overcame you in that you, like a fool, confused and blundering, you presume to address me as friend. But since you see your transgression as such, and make amends in accordance with the Dhamma, we forgive you for that, for it is growth in the Noble One's discipline. When one sees one's transgression as such, makes amends in accordance with the Dhamma, and undertakes restraint in the future. Venerable Sir, I would receive the full admission under the Blessed One, but are your bowl and robes complete, monk? And he's asking if he has all the requisites for becoming a monk. Quite often, when somebody in their past lifetime, they have donated robes and bowls and requisites for monks, and they want to become a monk, those bowls and requisites will just appear before him. That sort of thing does happen. But he hadn't done that, so he had to go complete his robes and get all the requisites that's needed. Venerable Sir, my bowl and robes are not complete. Monk, Tathagatas do not give full admission to anyone whose bowl and robes are not complete. Then the Venerable Pukusati, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's words, rose from his seat. After paying homage to the Blessed One, he departed in order to search for the bowl and robes. Then, while the Venerable Pukusati was searching for bowl and robes, a stray bull killed him. Oh. And when you get to the Dhammapada commentaries, you'll see the story about this, how it happened, why it happened. Then a number of monks went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down at one side and told him, Venerable Sir, the clansman Pukusati, who was given brief instruction by the Blessed One, has died. What is his destination? What is his future course? Monks, the clansman Pukusati was wise. He practiced in accordance with the Dhamma, and he did not trouble me in the interpretation of the Dhamma. With the destruction of the 5 lower fetters, the clansman Pukusati has reappeared spontaneously in the pure abodes, and there will attain final nibbana without ever returning from that world. That's what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So he was reborn in the Brahmaloka for anagamis. They have 5 different realms where a lot of different Vietnamese and a lot of Mahayana, they talk about Pure Land. And they've kind of misinterpreted what Pure Land is and how to get there. The Pure Lands it's a pure abodes where anagamis are reborn, and they last for a long time in those realms. Eventually they will become arahats, and then when their karma is expired, then they'll die from that realm and not be reborn. So I know I've had a lot of contact with Vietnamese, and their idea of Pure Land is you have to recite Abhitaba, Abhitaba, Abhitaba over and over and over again. Then when you die, your mind is so pure that you'll be reborn in a Pure Land. And they make this heavenly realm, make any other heavenly realm from any other religion be like it's low. This heavenly realm, this is really where it's at. I gave a talk in Seattle at a fairly large Vietnamese temple. There must have been 400 or 500 people there. and I told them basically that their idea of Pure Land doesn't have anything to do with heavenly realms. It has to do with what you're doing right now in this lifetime. You want to be in a Pure Land? You start wishing happiness for other people. You start helping other people. You be kind. You want to go to a hell realm? You can do that in this existence too. And when I got done, the monks and nuns were so excited by that they started saying, "Oh, you have to come and teach all of Vietnamese in the country. We have a meditation center where you can teach 200 people meditation at one time." And I said, "I can't do that. I have to see everybody every day. That's part of the teaching. The way I understand it, it needs to be done." So 40 is a lot. So if I see everybody for 10 minutes, that's 400 minutes. And a Dhamma talk after doing that, it gets to be quite tiring. So if I want to go do that, it's an open invitation. And if I want to do that, it's in Texas. But I have to have other teachers that would help. So we're building up other teachers these days, so maybe sometime I'll be able to do it for them. They said there's 350 Vietnamese temples all across the country. I'll take you to every one of them. I said, I have my own temple. I don't need to do this. But they were really excited by it because they'd never heard a Dhamma talk given that way. And they were truly smiling and happy when I got done. It was real inspiring to be around that many people that got it all at the same time. So, do you have any questions?
Bhante?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying
That's okay.
perfect attention the whole time. But that conceiving part, so that's just that part in the that's independent origination. That's habitual tendencies, bhavana, right?
The conceiving is talking about craving.
Okay. So where did that? I'm just trying to, and maybe it doesn't really matter. Think how that fit into
That's okay.
with the wheel. So
It's craving.
okay.
That's why conceiving occurs. I like it, I want it. I like this particular sutta because it is talking very much about craving in different ways. So you can recognize there's all different kinds of ways of explaining craving. And I like that very much. And putting this other sutta with this one so that your earth element, fire element you don't get caught hanging on to it is a real good lesson.
Which two suttas are those?
62,
62 and
140. Did you look up the other sutta?
Pardon?
Did you look up the other sutta I told you?
Mine? No. I was going to do one of them. But
Oh,
'cause I was,
you can do it here.
okay. Then we were we didn't want to
Well, but you're listening to interviews and that sort of thing. That's a little bit looser.
I have a question.
Okay.
I find it interesting that, that the Buddha himself, one of the first things he said after he became enlightened, awake, was that he was the Buddha, the awakened one. And that in a number of suttas, like this one, it talks about where the members of the Sangha talked about where someone was at and what level they were at and so forth. And yet today, it seems like there's sort of a prescription against talking about.
I know.
And I wonder
And
about
that is one of the Parachika rules.
Parachika.
That means one of the major rules that if I break it, I have to disrobe, is that I can't tell somebody about what my attainment is if it's false. Okay?
It's false.
If it's false, then I've broken the rule.
Right.
And people, especially in this country, they think it means you can't talk about your attainments or whatever you. But if it's true, there's no problem. It's not appropriate to ask a monk what his experience is. But monks talk about it among themselves all the time.
Okay. It seems like, for one thing, like with this practice, to be able to talk to people about like what your experience has been, where how what your attainment is really valuable in helping them to understand how this works.
The only thing I want to caution you about is don't talk about becoming a Sotapanna or a Sakadagami. It can be entirely true, but other people think that this is impossible to attain.
Right.
And they'll criticize you and tell you don't know what you're talking about. But as far as the other jhanas, try to get with people that understand jhana before you just start talking about it.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
Sort of like, oh, look at me, I'm great.
Right.
It's the more idea is about being able to talk about
Right.
how.
And I encourage that.
But it's not about actually attaining awakening.
Well, I just say caution. Be careful who you're talking to. If they don't really understand or they haven't had that experience,
Right.
then it causes all kinds of problems, and you don't really want to get into that.
Come to the Sonoma Sangha every Sunday, every month. You can talk about it all you like, because it's just filled with people who have had those kind of experiences. And
But
it's
I was thinking about it in terms of one, that clearly in the time of the Buddha, people just talked about it. It wasn't like it was such a
Right.
big deal. And the other is that in terms of talking with people not part of the Sangha, I think that it would be really helpful to be able to talk to them about what happens and how things how we change, or that's part of what would make someone interested in doing this at some point.
Yes. I also think that it's very valuable to sort of dissolve the assumption that, in the old days people got enlightened, but these days nobody really gets enlightened.
Right. That's,
I think it's really important.
and I think that happened with Mahasi Sayadaw. And he encouraged people not to talk about their insights and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But I don't go along with it. But just be careful.
Do it wisely.
Do it wisely.
Yeah, because I agree with that. It's like people say, one can't be enlightened And I don't like using that word either.
Right.
Awakening is to be awake is a much better word.
Yeah.
Did the Jesuits come up with that?
Enlightenment?
Yeah, during the Age of Enlightenment, when they were transcribing stuff in Sri Lanka, it was
Well,
the
they're-
Age of Enlightenment.
No, no, that comes from hair. The
The movie?
musical.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
One question.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard this criticism about the whole jhana thing, and I've actually kind of rumbled through that book a little bit, enough to know that I don't know what I'm doing. But it seems like there's talk all the way up to the fourth jhana, and then it just kind of, there's no conversation after that. And it wouldn't, you can, and I've had people say, well, the Dharma only says you only need to do the fourth jhana, and that's it.
Well, and that's,
Have you heard that before?
yeah. But you see, the fourth jhana has 4 different aspects,
Okay.
and that's what the arupa jhanas are.
And he talked about it in the sutta we've read tonight.
Yeah,
And he talked about
the infinite space and infinite consciousness.
Oh, okay.
And perception, non-perception.
Yeah,
Basic nothingness. Those are the four higher jhanas that go along with.
right. The arupa jhanas.
Could you tease out a little bit of what Jack's first question was about? Conception, and you said that meant craving.
Craving, yeah.
So, does an arhat have all of the links of dependent origination up to craving?
No. They're beyond dependent origination.
So they don't even have dependent origination?
Well, there are some links that arise and some links that don't. And what you do is you get down to the 5 aggregates. Okay, they have 5 aggregates, but never is it affected by craving or clinging. So you still have a physical body while you're alive. You have feeling that arises and perception. You have some formations, not all, and you have consciousness. But they're not clouded by the false belief in a personal self. When you talk to an arahat, you're talking to somebody that's coming straight from their intuition, not clouded by any kinds of hindrance at all.
So craving doesn't occur after feeling. There is no craving.
There is no
And
craving.
There is no clinging.
That's right.
And there is no habitual tendency.
Right.
And there is no birth of action.
Right.
And therefore there isn't any suffering.
Right.
But
you have to understand, each one of those links has some craving in it. It wouldn't arise if it didn't. But when you get to be an arahat, that craving disappears. And you don't have any ignorance at all because you see how things actually work according to Dhamma.
so then according to what you said last night, for the Sotapanna, Saktagami, and Anagami, the first 3 stages, those links are weakened?
Those,
They still exist.
no,
Meaning there is
you don't.
craving does arise.
There's still some craving even in anagami. That's what keeps them an anagami. That's why they're still anagami, because there is some craving. There's the 10 fetters. The first 5 fetters completely disappear when you get to be an anagami. When you get to be an arahat, all of those little subtle things like restlessness and sloth and torpor and a desire to be reborn in a particular realm, and the pride and ignorance, all of those disappear. So there is no more of that.
So is it fair to say then that the stages indicate awakening by degrees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like there's the awakening of from the first jhana to the second jhana. You start seeing things more clearly when you start going through the jhanas. And there's a big argument that some people will say that when you get to the fourth jhana, you don't breathe anymore.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Yeah. But nowhere in the suttas does it say that. That comes from one-pointed concentration. You will be able to see the breath, although it's very subtle, but as you go through the arupa jhanas, you'll see the breath up to the realm of nothingness. It doesn't happen, you don't see it, it still happens with neither perception nor non-perception, but it's very, very little breath that is needed because you're in such subtle states. And they're trying to prove, that physiologically this can happen, and how it can happen and all of that kind of thing. And that's one of the things that Punaji says, yes, that is the way it happens. When you get to the fourth jhana, you don't have any more, you can't be with mindfulness of breathing anymore because there is no breath.
I've heard him say that.
Yeah. And we've had our discussions about that.
I don't agree with him on that because it's not true.
Right.
For me.
Right. But that's part of the problem of scholars against practitioners.
In the absorptions, in the Vedic traditions, they do the same thing, fourth jhana and the breathing stops.
Yeah,
But it's absorption types.
yeah,
I mean, so that's what's happening.
yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that kind of thing is so strong because people really believe it. I've been mocked because I tell people that you can be in an arupa jhana while you're walking. And they say, oh no, that's impossible. Any of the arupa jhanas, you have to be sitting. You can't be up moving around. And even Usilananda said that until he got to that stage.
So then the question is, I was going to ask you this last night, have you had students experience nibbana while they were standing,
Yes,
walking,
yes,
lying down?
right,
And of course, sitting.
right.
Just like it says.
Just like it says.
Yeah, it happens really fast. I mean, look at Sariputta. He was fanning the Buddha. Now, he'd been practicing for a couple of weeks, and he was really deep into how dependent origination worked. And he had a slight attachment to that. He really liked watching all of that. And he was fanning the Buddha, and it dawned on him, the Buddha isn't even attached to the Dhamma. And while he was fanning, as soon as that happened, he became an arahat with fruition while he was fanning the Buddha. It doesn't matter. You can be doing anything. When mind is ready to do that, it will do it on its own.
So is that a fair question to ask a meditation teacher if they've taught students who have had awakening experience in those four modalities? Or is it,
Most of them are going to do some what they call eel wriggling.
I mean, is it inappropriate? I mean, somebody asked me the other day, it's like, how can I find a really good teacher? And he was just going to go out the door. I had nothing to say. I said, just what I told you. I asked them the questions. They've had success with,
Well,
people.
most people, because of that prohibition of talking, that most teachers will say, you can't ask those kind of questions.
That's
Okay.
the end of the conversation.
Yeah. And I don't answer that way. Yes, it can happen. And if you don't believe me, I'll send them to different students.
But more important, have they had a student experience that? That's the important part.
Yeah, right,
Because if they haven't, why are you going to that teacher? That's the question.
right. But it depends on the definition of nibbana. It really does. Because there are people that practice vipassana that they have gone through all of the insight knowledges, and according to Mahasi Sayadaw, you become a Sotapanna at least. But that doesn't agree with what it says in the suttas. So there are people that are walking around thinking that they're Sotapannas, but there's been no real personality change. And they still walk around with their pride and their I know and you don't know attitudes, which drives me crazy. And I've got the first jhana. You don't have the first jhana. Or I have the first stage of awakening. You can't talk to me like that because I'm a saint. Oh, give me a break.
And these are the Arupa jhanas that we're talking about.
Well, it can be at any one of those jhanas. I had one student that was in Sri Lanka, and he got to just out of the fourth jhana, and he just started experiencing infinite space, and his mind had the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness right then. So anybody that has any of the jhanas, they have the potential for attaining nibbana, and it can be at any time. I haven't had any that has been in the lower jhanas, like third jhana or second jhana. I haven't had any students that attained nibbana when they were doing that. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. I mean, there's a sutta in here that talks about it doesn't matter what jhana you're in, you can attain nibbana at that time. What is it, 53, I think. No, 52. Sutta number 52, if you want to look it up yourself.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One of them is just simple. Would you say that the fetters are like more subtle forms of hindrances?
Yeah.
That's
That's just a different way of saying it.
It's more, they're more subtle, but they're basically,
There's
most
still-
hindrances are included in them and
Right,
some additional things as well.
right.
But that seems, okay. And then the second thing is, when you talk about experiencing nibbana, is that the moment of cessation, or is that like?
No, it's when you come back and you see the links.
That's the moment of nibbana.
Yeah, right.
And that, so cessation happens and then
Right.
nibbana happens.
Right.
It's just like, okay.
But it all happens when the
Pretty
conditions are right, pretty fast. And as you go deeper from one stage to the next, you'll see the links of dependent origination coming up and going away 2 times when you get to Sakdagami, and it's 3 times when you get to be Anagami, and it's 4 times when you have Arahatship. And your understanding, every time that happens, it just explodes. Your understanding becomes so much more subtle about things, and how things actually work, and you start to experience deeper and deeper true happiness all the time. You stop losing your emotional stuff, and you're developing your equanimity a lot more. And that's definitely worth it.
So you're becoming cool.
You're becoming cooler as you go deeper, yeah. Yeah.
Bhante, last night I was asking about the 7 awakening factors, and you had also talked about the kind of backing off as being part of energy.
Right.
And you said you would talk a little bit more about those.
I said I would talk about them during this retreat, not tonight. You'll get it, I promise. This particular sutta, I think, is important enough. That's why I did that tonight, and there's one more that I want to do before I'll talk about so you don't have to ask it tomorrow. I know it's there. So, anything else?
One more question.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, in this sutta, Buddha talks about joy, grief, and equanimity.
Yeah.
Traditional lust, hatred, and delusion.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why
Is it? Say it again.
in this particular sutta he?
Yeah, I got that
Yeah.
part. Say what you did at the end. I didn't catch it.
So why does he talk about joy as opposed to lust that it occurs in other suttas?
It's just different ways of saying the same thing. Why does he talk about lust, hatred, and delusion when he's talking about craving? Why does he talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 5 aggregates when it's different ways of saying the same thing? He was really clever, the way he talked about things. So,
Are the 10 fetters the same as the 10 bonds?
you mean the Upakalesa?
I don't know. The bonds, 10 bonds.
Well, the 10 fetters are the not having any doubt, not having any belief that rites and rituals lead to nibbana, not taking things personally, lust, hatred, wanting to be able to reborn in one of the Brahma lokas, sloth and torpor, restlessness, pride, and ignorance. Those are the 10 fetters. And it's just a different way of saying it. So, and if you run across a sutta that is not backed up by other suttas, be suspicious of them. And I've done this with many times about Sutta number 20, when it talks about you have to push your tongue against the roof of your mouth and grit your teeth and crush mind with mind when you have a hindrance. That was taken from another sutta that said, it doesn't work when you do that. But because of the one-pointed concentration, there was a teacher, a meditation teacher that taught jhana, that did a retreat. He did a self-retreat for 8 months. The first 3 months, he said he had to push his tongue against the roof of his mouth and grit his teeth and crush mind with mind. 3 months of practice.
Ouch.
Oh, what a hindrance.
That's gotta hurt.
Oh, yeah. It says something about his persistence. But I went to Bhikkhu Bodhi and I started laughing because I said, I don't have any students that have to do that. They're not practicing correctly if they have to do that. And he said, oh, no, I've had to do that myself. Whoa. Well, there's something wrong with that practice as far as I can see. And it's because of getting the Brahmins starting to take over Buddhism when King Sukha, he was a very strong patron of the monks. And the Brahmins started to get jealous because they had all this top-of-the-line food and good clothing and nice places to stay. And they started just putting on the robes, but they didn't know what they were, anything about the Buddha's teaching, and they started adding into a lot of the suttas about one-pointed concentration, and that's where it got really confusing. So, and that's a major difference between Mahayana and Theravada. See, the Mahayana, they got to a place where they didn't have any arhats, so they had to come up with something or they were going to lose their people. And that's where they came up with the Bodhisattva vow. Now, there is a Bodhisattva vow in Theravada, but there are certain things, requirements to become a Bodhisattva. One, you have to take the vow in front of a Buddha. And the Buddha looks into the future and says, you have strong enough determination, yes, you will become a future Buddha. And that's what Bodhisattva means, a future Buddha. But they started adding all of these different things. The Tibetans said, oh, don't become an arahat. Or if you become an arahat, you should go to the hell realms and help all beings get out of the hell realms. I'm going to be a bodhisattva until all beings attain awakening. The Buddha couldn't do it. If he could, we wouldn't be here. But there's people that really, really believe that. And a bodhisattva vow will stop you from attaining nibbana. It'll stop it. You'll only be able to get up to a certain degree in your meditation, and that's as far as you'll go because of the bodhisattva vow.
Is the vow get out of it a book? Can you get out of the vow?
Yes, of course. I had a man in Korea. They give a bodhisattva vow and they don't tell anybody that's what it is. So it just turns into a rite and ritual and everybody recites it, but they don't know what they're saying. Well, this kind of vow is really strong. And he came and he started practicing meditation and he was going very, very deep, and all of a sudden he stopped. And he started getting angry because I can't go any deeper. And I said, you've taken a bodhisattva vow. If you want to let go of that bodhisattva vow, then you have to renounce 3 times in front of a Buddha image with a solemn mind. I now renounce the bodhisattva vow. I'm not going to be a bodhisattva anymore. He came in right after he did it, and I said, "Do you feel different now?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it just opened up his heart a lot, and he just felt real expansion." And a couple days later, he was successful. So the bodhisattva vow is a real thing, and you have to be careful of it. And you might have taken it in a past lifetime. Who knows? If you feel like there's something that's blocking you, you don't go any deeper, then it doesn't hurt to renounce the bodhisattva vow if you haven't taken it. But if you have, it's a good idea to renounce it. So, can't hurt. Right.
Vital insurance.
Yeah. But I know people that are very, very serious about it. And if you don't take it in front of a Buddha, and the Buddha confirms that you are going to be a future Buddha, what happens is you start realizing this is a hard path. And they have to go through all kinds of trials and tribulations and learning how to purify they call them perfections. When you become a bodhisattva for real, the first thing that happens is you will never tell a lie. And this is for, 1 million or 1.5 million lifetimes.
And in terms of the Buddha, how do you find the Buddha to actually help you undo the vow?
Well, you don't have to.
Who would count as a qualified person?
Image. You said image.
Oh, it's
But
an
yeah, with a solemn mind that you really want to give up this vow if you've taken it. And when you do, you start feeling a lot lighter if you had taken it. Sometimes people take it and nothing. They don't feel anything. Okay, fine. But what happens with people that take a bodhisattva vow after a few thousand or even 100,000 lifetimes, every lifetime they know they've taken a vow. Okay? And they start going, oh, this is way too hard. And they'll renounce the vow. But what happens if they renounce a vow without being in a Buddha era? Then they're just caught back in samsara again. So I don't care whether you renounce the vow or not. I just want to give you the information for it. I have some students that they said, no, I have to keep this vow. It's fine, I don't care. I'm just giving you the information. You can do with it what you want. So, the people that keep the bodhisattva vow, they generally will do a retreat or two, and then I never see them again. Then they start going to other teachers and that sort of thing. The Tibetans are real big on the bodhisattva vow and the bodhisattva this and the bodhisattva that. And, in my heart, I feel sorry for them. But it's their choice. I can't dictate to anybody. So.
Does that mean, though, then, that means that they don't achieve any level of enlightenment? Or
They
that
cannot
they don't
attain,
even are?
they cannot become even a Sotapanna.
Oh, really?
Right. Because it means future Buddha.
Right.
Now, if you attain Sotapanna, you only have 7 more lifetimes.
Right. So they can't achieve any level of awakening.
So that explains why these Tibetans keep on getting
Yeah.
recirculated.
I mean, in a way, you could see it actually as a social way of getting people to maintain their continuous connection and service to that form of Buddhism
Yeah,
in that country.
yeah.
What about people who say they've experienced Nibbana and then they take the Bodhisattva vow?
The Bodhisattva vow won't catch.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it.
Well, you can do it, but it doesn't mean
Not
anything.
enough lifetimes to become a Buddha.
Right. And you wouldn't do it if you were Sotapanna. If you have the understanding of what a Sotapanna is, why would you want to take a Bodhisattva vow?
Because maybe they've experienced something different that they think is Nibbana.
I can't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I can't really talk about because I'd have to talk to the person personally and discuss with them. There are experiences, quote, enlightenment experiences that you can get with one-pointed concentration. But it's not the same. And you will be able to break precepts. Okay, people that they can get real. There's a lot of stories in the Buddhist text about the Bodhisattva he was able to fly in the air and do all kinds of things. And he went to visit this king, and he flew into the room, and he startled the queen who was taking rest and just had a piece of cloth over her, and she sat up, and he saw her naked body, and he had lust come up into his mind, and he lost his powers because of that. So those kind of things still can happen, even though you might have great powers. And the way they talk about some of the quote gurus in India and their sexual activities and that sort of thing, it makes it suspicious about what enlightenment is and what it isn't.
Bhante,
Hmm.
when I first started hearing about jhanas, it was really around that whole deal with Dipama, and that she had a lot of these psychic powers that you were talking about, and that's what it really confused me about, what jhanas are and where they go, and I mean, there's just...
Well, see, that's misunderstanding of the Westerners coming to Burma. Mahasi Sayadaw, when he set up Mahasi Center, he started teaching laymen straight vipassana. He said, you don't have time to develop jhanas, so just do the straight vipassana. But he was teaching jhanas to the monks, and he practiced jhanas. And he never said, oh, don't do that. It only leads to psychic abilities. He never said that. It's some of the Westerners that came and interpreted it that way. And actually they've hurt a lot of people because of it. Because you do straight vipassana for 25 years or 30 years and you don't have any real attainment, then you're going to stop doing it. And that's a problem. David, he stopped meditating for 20 years until I ran across him. He had read all of the Nikayas, which is very impressive. He didn't know what he was reading most of the time. But he was really enthusiastic about the Buddha's teaching, but he wasn't seeing any progress, so he just stopped doing the meditation. And then I came...
I didn't read all that stuff, but I took Vipassana for easily probably 10 years or so, and it just like the dog to the hunt, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't agree with what it says about the good qualities of the Dhamma. It doesn't agree with this is immediately effective.
Boy, those guys get really angry when you say something though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dogma is heavy duty. You get caught in your dogma, it's really a heavy duty thing. And I've been so heavily criticized, you can't believe it. And I don't care. I know what works. And I went through straight Vipassana as far as you can go. And I could still break precepts. Well, then that means that the experience they say was Nibbana isn't. And anybody that does have the experience, I tell them to check for themselves. Don't believe what I say. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. So what? Check for yourself. Like the man that said, I had this experience, I don't think I attained Nibbana. I pointed at something about this color and I said, tell me that this is pink. And he couldn't get it out. I said, well, it does sound like you attained it, didn't it?
I was reading one of the suttas
I don't know what you were reading.
Yeah,
You have to show me.
okay. Anguttara Nikaya.
Ah. I'm disappointed with the Anguttara Nikaya.
Yeah. What is that?
Because it's supposed to be somewhere around 12,000 suttas, and there's only 4,000 in the Anguttara Nikaya. A lot was left out. I've taken this, and I've taken the ... out. So there's a lot of repeating in this. And when you lose the American idea or Western idea that you just want to hear it one time and that's enough, but you have to bear with hearing the same thing over and over and over again. When you lose the resistance of doing that and start appreciating that if you hear this over and over again, it starts to sink in. It really makes the Dhamma come alive. Like the 6 sets of 6. That has a lot of repeating in it. Do you have that?
We have it.
Okay. Good.
One,
6 copies.
six
For everybody.
sets of 6 for 14.
Oh, that's a lot. But in the sutta, in the way that Bhikkhu Bodhi did it with all of the ... so that he didn't go over the repeating, it's only 3 pages here. When I wrote it out without any ... it was closer to 40.
That book would be, you wouldn't be able to pick the book up.
Well, it'll get back to the way it should be. But it's, I've been going through slowly, but I've been going through and starting to change the definition of, or the translation, some of the words and that sort of thing. And what I'm going to do is the whole book eventually, but I'm not going to say that this is the Majjhima Nikaya. I'm going to say that this is a sub-commentary. And you can go through and I tend to use words that are easier to understand with the actual practice. And Bhikkhu Bodhi, sometimes he doesn't. So we have to get together and discuss. But some of the things that he put in there, it's actually very misleading. Especially when he starts talking about the arupa jhanas and that sort of thing. So, and I've discussed that with him and he doesn't agree, but I don't care. He's more into the literal translation rather than the spirit of what is being taught. And sometimes they're not quite the same.
Well, if he has these experiences, it would be direct knowledge.
Right.
So it would make the translation or interpretation to translate more functional and germane to how the language is being used today.
Right. That's true.
I mean, what he calls samadhi concentration. There you go.
There we go again. And you have to, if you're going to do a translation, you have to go with the modern definitions of things, like samadhi, concentration. Well, that's what the word they used when Rice Davies first started doing the translation. And it's not an appropriate word because concentration means something completely different now than it might have been back in the 1890s or whenever he started doing that. And he used a lot of Old English that stuck. And it just, kind of makes my back not feel good.
So, what is the difference between samadhi and concentration? I always thought they were the same thing.
The word samadhi was never used before the Buddha came around. There was a lot of words for deep concentration, but samadhi he made up to try to describe a different kind of awareness. When the Brahmins came in, they started changing definitions of things, and they changed it to one-pointed concentration. And the whole idea of the jhanas, that's caused so much confusion, it's just unbelievable. And they say, well, this is samadhi, that means concentration jhana. But when you look at the real instructions in meditation, especially mindfulness of breathing, but everything, it tells you very plainly that on the in-breath you relax your bodily formation, on the out-breath you relax your bodily formation. And when you go to the mindfulness of breathing sutta, you get to the fourth jhana, then it says, on the in-breath you relax your mental formations. On the out-breath you relax the mental formation. That's 6 hours. But that's not the way it's being taught. And the attachment is real strong. I've talked with a lot of meditation teachers and I say, well, why don't you just try this? Do what it says here and just try it for a week and see what difference it makes. I did the first time I sat down and I started doing that on the in-breath and out-breath. I got so deep I couldn't believe it. I mean, my mind just went, Zhoo. And I'd done a lot of other kinds of meditation that were one-pointed concentration. But I saw the difference. There's a kind of awareness that's much different when you get into the jhana. But there's a lot of people that really get hooked on the idea that their mind becomes peaceful and calm. And this is blissful. And if I put that extra step in, my mind's active. Well, they don't want to do that. And that's okay. But what's the end result of what you're doing? That's the thing that matters to me.
Yes, I see that in my Sangha, where there's one member who has never really got out of the standard jhana thing, and as a result, you don't really see much movement in this person,
Right.
who's a fairly rigid individual anyway, and it sort of suits him that all set up in that way.
Oh, yeah.
It's bizarre because he knows what I and other members of the group experienced in contact with this group, and it doesn't seem to register, which is strange.
attachments to that sort of practice are real strong. There was a guy that had been practicing one-pointed concentration in Australia for 7 years. And he started complaining because he said, I don't see any personality change. So I gave him the instructions. Mindfulness of breathing, on the in-breath, relax, out-breath, relax. But he'd forget to do it and he'd get into his one-pointed concentration. So I said, okay, I'm going to change your meditation. You have to do loving kindness. Oh, the complaining about my mind is so active. I have so many hindrances. I'm going to go back to the mindfulness of breathing because I know that one and I get peaceful and calm. So finally I got tired of listening to him. And I said, I don't want you to sit anymore for 1 week. What you have to do is smile. That's all you have to do. Just smile. And when you have trouble smiling, then I want you to laugh. Simple. I didn't hear from him for that week. And when he came back, he said, I really took what you said to heart, and I did this. And these are the things I started noticing. Whenever I was walking around from one place to another, I was always in a dream world. I was always in this mental haze. And when I started smiling, I noticed that I was walking with my shoulders down and my head down. And when I started smiling, my posture changed. And people started smiling back. And that's never happened. He said, even when it was hard to smile, I still smiled. And there's benefit to that. And I asked him, have you noticed that mindfulness any difference? He said, I've been practicing 7 years. What I thought was mindfulness, I had no idea what mindfulness was. And now he's starting to get it. And he was on our website, and people would write about their practice, and he would start answering them, and he knew what he was talking about. It was really amazing. And one of the last things he told me about the changes that he was going through, he said, now I don't have to take so many drugs. Drugs. What are you talking about here? Drugs. And he said, I'm in a mental institute. They told me I was going to have to stay in here for the rest of my life. 6 months later, he was doing so well, he left. That's personality change. It's real amazing. But so many people, they just want to have bliss for a little while and be quiet for a little while and then go back to their daily life and not recognizing any of the other hindrances that are coming up and attacking them and how much unhappiness there is because of that. It's a sad thing to see so many people attached and angry if you try to show them something else. I set up a monastery in Malaysia, and I was practicing Vipassana at the time, so I was giving Vipassana talks and that kind of thing, which doesn't have anything to do with the suttas. And the monastery is still there and it's growing quite well, but it's run by Burmese who are teaching straight Vipassana. All of the people that I was teaching, when I left and I went to Burma for 2 years, and I came back and I couldn't teach Vipassana anymore because I didn't believe in it. They got upset when I started teaching loving kindness meditation. And I started using the suttas a little bit more, but I was still using the Dhatuvibangha quite a bit. Then when somebody came along and said, put the Dhatuvibangha aside, just use the language of the suttas, I started seeing that. I'd give a retreat, and I start seeing people in 2 or 3 days getting into jhana. And it's like, wow. When I was practicing straight Vipassana, I tried jhana practice. It took me 6 weeks to get into a jhana. And it wasn't very stable. So when I started teaching with sutta knowledge, all of those people, they truly loved me. But when I started teaching something else, all of a sudden I was a pariah. And they just didn't like that at all. I still go and see these people, but I don't talk Dhamma with them because it's not worth it. But that's how life goes. I have a lot more students now that are successful than I ever had before. And successful with getting into jhana. I mean, probably 95, 98% of the students that I have, they follow directions, they're going to get into the jhana in the first retreat. So, and there's all of those people that I was teaching before, they're very much afraid of the word jhana. Oh, we practice straight vipassana, dry nipassana. Yeah, it is. It's so dry that there's no meat to it. And there's not much success with it. But everybody has to learn at their own pace. So, anything else? Any other question? Okay, let's share some merit then. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.